Get the show on the road, eh? Okay. Mauri ora e te iwi, ko tai atu ki te hauru o te iwa karaka, nā reira me timata tā tātou hui. Good morning everybody, it is now 9:30 and it is time to start our meeting for this day. And I'd like to start with a karakia that I think some of us might know, but it's pertinent to our weather and in particular Waikato weather. Foggy, chilly, fresh. Okay, kia inoi tātou, let us pray. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. E hi ake ana te ātākura, he tio, he huka, he hauhu, ti hei mauri ora. Cease the winds from the west, cease the winds from the south. Let the breeze blow over the land, let the breeze blow over the ocean. Let the red-tipped dawn come with a sharpened ear, a touch of frost, a promise of a new day. On this day, the 22nd of May, 1995, 30 years ago, Waikato Tainui, along with the government of the day, National, signed the Waikato Raupatu Settlement Act. At that time, our reigning ariki was Dame Te Ariki Nui Te Ātairangi Kāhu. And we fast forward today to her mokopuna, her granddaughter, our current queen, Queenie Ngā Waihono i te Pō. And that momentous occasion will be honoured out at Hopu Hopu today with the launch of a series of digital captures led by Nanaia Mahuta. So it's only right that we acknowledge that. 1.2 million acres was confiscated, 300,000 were returned, $170 million was the first deal for the first iwi to settle in this land. And now Waikato Tainui are worth over $2 billion, an economic powerhouse in this city and this country. So it is fitting to acknowledge that momentous occasion and what that means for us here, not just in Kirikiriroa, Hamilton, but in Aotearoa, New Zealand and globally. Nā reira, with that, I want to acknowledge everybody that is watching online, everybody that is here today. Kia ora, Councillor Sarah, all the way from the deep south, and taking time to partake while you're with your family, and also Councillor Moko Tauariki. So we're going to head to our agenda today with our apologies. Want to acknowledge our crew over in Chengdu at the moment, Mayor Paula Southgate, along with Councillor Ewan Wilson and Councillor Maxine Van Oosten and our Chief Executive Lance, who are representing our city at the Mayoral Forum. So those are some apologies. We don't need to have an apology from Councillor Thompson because Councillor Thompson is online, and lateness from Councillor Casey Cox. Are there any more apologies?
Moko has noted partial attendance.
And partial attendance from Councillor Moko Tauariki.
And Madam Chair, just my departure for hopefully only a few minutes. Around 11 p.m. on council business, I'm presenting submission to the Justice Select Committee on our behalf.
Ka pai. Do we have a mover for our apologies? Yep. Councillor Hutt, seconder. Second. Councillor Anaru, Andrew, saw that hand go up. Too quick.
All those in favour?
All those in favour? Aye, ka pai. Ka haere tonu, we'll continue. Confirmation of the agenda. Do we have a mover?
Yep.
Councillor Hutt again, and we've got those hands are fast today, looking fresh and fly like a school teacher, and seconded by Councillor McIndoe. Moving on to item 3, declarations of interest. I'll start off with this one. When we come to item 9 on the agenda, I do have a conflict of interest specifically with funding approval for the Waikato Regional Theatre opening. I will be a part of that, exercising my Māori Performance Pōtai hat. So when we come to a decision on that, I'll be just moving away from the table, and Deputy Mayor Angela will be coming in, and Councillor McIndoe.
I declare the same interest. I don't feel conflicted, but because of my previous role with the Waikato Regional Theatre, promoting fundraising, etc., I just want to put that on the table, please.
We should be all right.
Just.
So I will definitely take the chair.
Yes.
Ka pai. Kia ora. Anything else? Anyone else for a declaration of interest? Ka pai. No vote required for that one. Continuing on. No public forum today? Oh, nice and fast. Love this. Okay, item 5. Confirmation of the Economic Development Committee open minutes. Councillor Harikin, mover. Yo, Emma Pike. Councillor Pike, coming in for the seconder. All those in favour? Okay. Coming to item 6, the Chair's report. I'll take that as read and I will move that. Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Loving the keenness here. Councillor Hutt to second. All those in favour? Any questions? Okay, nice. Haere tonu. Item 7, General Manager's report. Also take that as read. Ka pai. I'll move that. Seconder. Councillor Naidu Ralph. All those in favour? Yeah. Sorry, questions?
No, I haven't got a question.
Wonderful.
Going, gone. Excellent. Okay, item 8. I saw Matt and his funky hairdo in the background there. To our BID, Business Improvement District Policy Review. The floor is yours, Mr. Mills.
Thank you. Good morning, councillors. So I'm here to seek approval of the revised Business Improvement District policy. So the bid policy has been reviewed a number of times over the last few years, most recently in April 2024. This current review is to update the bid policy to meet the requirements of the Incorporated Societies Act 2022. So while it does look like there's a lot of changes, most of the changes relate to the formatting of the current policy, and what we're doing is shifting process matters into the appendix there. We've also updated the policy to remove operational detail that is a responsibility of the bid, and clarifying responsibilities that sit with the bid rather than council. So for example, the internal disputes process for a bid, which is now outlined in the Act. So HCBA, which is our current bid, our only bid, have been fully informed and are very supportive of the changes. It's actually more onerous on them now, the Incorporated Societies Act versus us. And you'll be pleased to know that we won't be reviewing it for another 3 years. So yeah, so if there are any questions.
Councillor Taylor?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Matt, look, thanks for that. I was going through it desperately trying to work out if there was any kind of tangible change, like in the way, it all looks very technical and kind of procedural. I mean, is there any, does it put more onus on them in terms of reporting, or what is the impact of this?
So it does, yes, I agree. So a lot of the changes are mostly sort of formatting and moving things out of, initially our bid policy had a lot of process on how to set up the bid, etc., which we no longer need, so that's moved to the appendix.
Yeah.
So that's the bulk of the changes. In terms of, so the Incorporated Societies Act 2022, there is more work for the bid to do, so not us, because we're not an incorporated society, so it's really just putting that onto the bid.
What sort of work?
Oh, so for example, like we used to have, the example I just gave with the disputes process, we used to have that outlined, we currently have it outlined in the bid policy, but that is now covered under the Incorporated Societies Act, and it's more prescribed for what they need to be doing internally.
But what sort of extra work does it impose on them?
So it's, I guess, not so much extra work for our current bid, like for HCBA, because they have quite robust processes already, but I guess the original 1907 Act was very light on detail in terms of how to do things, and this has become a bit more prescriptive.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Kia ora.
It's probably just worth clarifying, you've worked, or you've talked this through with HCBA?
Yes, at
Vanessa,
length, yeah.
And their views are?
Vanessa has no concerns about our policy because she's more focused on having to meet up, the Incorporated Societies Act. That's really what she'll be following now. Our policy is very, not as prescriptive for her. So yeah, she's very supportive of the changes. She's not fussed, yeah.
Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Sarah online.
Thanks, Matt. I'm just trying to work out, have we resolved the issue around voting in this? You know, how last time there was a problem where people were needed to, can you vote digitally now?
I might get Greg to... Oh, yeah, Karen. Yeah.
Morena, everybody. Can you hear me? So, Councillor Sarah, the real beauty of this policy is you would have heard Matt talk about how the polling process has been moved to the appendix. So what that means is that pulling it out of the policy means that if technology changes, for example, in the last issue we had was around the poll had to be done by mail, and there are people alive at the moment who don't know what mail is anymore. So pulling it out to the appendix gives staff the flexibility to change that process stuff without necessarily coming through a full policy review, which we think is a much better way of approaching it.
Okay, cool, thank you. Because I was looking through that appendix at the voting process and I couldn't tell immediately. But so if that's all easy to change, then that's great, thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor Thompson. Deputy Mayor O'Leary.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report. I'm just, in terms of point, and it's all great, point 34, point 35 on page 35, just that we've changed from an appropriate staff member will be responsible for the bid relationship, and now it's a council general manager will be responsible for the relationship.
Yeah.
Was it appropriate staff member? Because I just raise it because over the years HCBA have raised, the lack of that account manager and being able to go to a one-stop person. So I think that's what you're doing here. But the general manager can appoint someone.
That's the one. So it says a council general manager will be responsible for the bid relationship and will appoint a one point of contact staff member for the relationship interface.
I like it. Yeah, ta-da.
Yeah.
We've bought in for sure.
And I'm the GM.
Yeah, and you're the GM, And of course, my second question, although you've gone ta-da, was that is that person appropriately delegated to make decisions and respond quickly to the bid's needs?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, because there's a lot.
Ta-da. Yes,
Yeah.
fantastic. I like it. Thank you very much.
Tēnā koe, Councillor Bidder.
Adding in performance accountability, page 34, when are the KPIs set? Who sets them? How will that discussion go? So item numbers 26 to 28 on page 34 of page 11 of the report, page 34 of the agenda.
Karen, Matt, that'll be in relation to the 3-yearly strategic plan and the annual process.
Yeah, and that particular one isn't a change from the existing policy. It was just shifted, I think, where it was. Yeah, so that process has always been in place.
Yeah.
And that's part of, I guess it's part of this committee, and that, how we get the reports from Vanessa quite regularly in terms of how she's performing. So that's where that stuff needs to be coming through. So I think there is some work for us to do to just look at that again and make sure it's fit for purpose and that we're reporting the right things through to the committee.
Right, perfect.
Yeah, and I just add to what Karen said, Councillor Bitter, every 3 years this committee gets the bid produces a sort of a strategic plan, and there's a funding agreement, bits and pieces. So that's where they've set for that 3-year cycle.
Right, thanks.
Any further questions? Do we have a mover? Councillor Taylor, seconder. Councillor Kesh. Any debate? Kapai? Okay. All right. All those in favour?
The motion is carried unanimously.
Okay, moving to, thank you, Matt, thank you, Karen. Kia ora, Sean, moving to event sponsorship fund and recommendations for approval FY26 to FY27, item 9.
Thank you, Chair. I'm about to say it's Groundhog Day, but this is the event that happens every year at this committee where we bring the applicants for the event sponsorship fund to the committee for approval. Just as a reminder, we are governed by a policy that sets the criteria for the application of this fund, which to put simplistically is very much centred around economic benefit for the city, and we sort of tend to talk a lot about that in terms of generating visitation, overnight stays, as well as a profile for the city that sort of helps sells the city to people from the outside and encourage them to come here. It's a highly contestable fund. It's a challenging process every year that we have going through it, and there's always an excess of applicants to the budget that we have. One of the themes that continues year after year that we have talked about previously is where there are national type sporting or cultural events that bring in people from all around the country, and it could be something like a men's pairs bowling or a secondary school swim champs. Although they might sound like a sort of a more low level event, they actually generate big numbers, and this is where this fund has particular strength so that we can support national type events that are using our facilities to the city. And so I certainly stress that as something that comes through. There are two items that I would like to address, if that's okay, Chair. One is one event that we are proposing receives funding support, which is a little bit out of the ordinary, is to support the opening of the Waikato Regional Theatre at the end of the year. Admittedly, this will not necessarily attract thousands of bed nights to the city for the opening event or the opening week itself. However, it is going to deliver substantial profile for the city. There will be TV crews, there will be all sorts of things going on, which will be a very, very big story for the city. And as I'm sure you all appreciate, the Regional Theatre Trust obviously always going to be challenged with funding, and this is our way of supporting them with that opening event, which I think will deliver very high profile and actually be of value to the city, especially when you consider the significant investment the city has, through council has made in this theatre. So, it warrants, in my view, some attention for its opening celebration. It would be a shame if it was a little bit of a non-event. Hence the reason I put this forward for approval with you. The second item I'd just like to talk about is the Boon Street Arts Festival, which has gathered a bit of interest, and it always does. We have, as I have said in emails, and some of you would have read the Waikato Times report, which was pretty accurate. The Boon Street Festival is a fantastic event, in my personal opinion, and especially when we talk about placemaking for the city, which is of high interest to me, given if I put my H3 or destinations hat on. But it doesn't fit, the outcome of Boon Street doesn't fit the criteria that's set by the policy for this fund, and this is where we always have the challenge. We have had previous instances where this committee has actually approved out of policy support for Boon Street. But I have to say it still remains out of policy if we are to make an approval or seek to put direct money out of this fund to it. I'd note, and I don't know the details, that council is already supporting it through one of the community funds, but obviously it's probably not at the level that they need. Previously, we have had discussions through informal meetings with the Bourne Street Board and elected members, and also through information sessions with elected members, and I'm going back a few years now, where we have discussed the notion of whether or not Bourne Street warrants council's consideration of having a more permanent funding base in place for it. So there's not an argy-bargy going on every year, and we're wasting their time by them applying to a fund where it simply doesn't apply, because they're just trying whatever they can, and good on them for doing that. So I would signal to you that I still believe council needs to give some consideration, just as it funds the Christmas tree every year, should it have a fixed fund through its LTP process to support the likes of Bourne Street. And that has been mooted but never acted upon through that process. So I hope you don't mind me just giving you that additional background, but otherwise happy to take any questions you may have.
And first up on the board, we have Councillor Taylor for questions.
Thanks, Chair Maria. Yeah, Sean, I hear, I guess, can you just, it's probably in here and I just haven't read it properly. Can you just explain for me the opening of the theatre? Now, first of all, can you just explain in your own words more why Boone is outside the policy?
If the primary part of the policy is about what economic benefit will the event deliver to the city, and Bourne Street does not attract visitors as an event of any scale, in any sort of number. It doesn't generate a great deal of associated spend that's associated with the event. Whereas the other applications that come in here, we're talking about literally hundreds of room nights that it will generate for the accommodation sector, hospitality delivery, CBD activation, and so it just delivers a lot more new cash into the city, whereas the Bourne Street event doesn't have the opportunity to attract that. Now, don't get me wrong, it's great for placemaking and I believe making the city, especially the CBD, a more attractive place. But in its own right, it's not necessarily generating that economic turnover that the policy is seeking to achieve through this fund.
Thank you. Doesn't the regional theatre opening sit on the periphery as well then?
Yes, it does.
Because that particular night, isn't going to bring in bed nights or economic development.
That's exactly as I said, and that's why I said it is an outlier, but from my perspective, part of the policy is talking about something that's really going to drive heavy profile for the city, and the opening week for the theatre is going to attract a lot of profile, a lot of attention for the city, and that's why I felt that there was a slightly unusual case to put towards it in that. Yes, it won't attract, there will be a lot of people coming to town for it, but it won't be in the huge numbers like we get for a secondary schools champ. But it is going to deliver a huge amount of profile for the city as an event. And that's what I felt should be taken into consideration, which is part of that scoring criteria that we have.
Yeah, I hear that. I guess I'm just feeling, if we're bending the policy, which we are, it seems to me, for the opening of the theatre, doesn't it put us in a slightly difficult position if we're not prepared to bend the policy for Boone? Because we certainly are booning it. We certainly are bending it for the.
Yeah, well, we have bent it in the past, but I guess I don't feel that with my perspective that I'm putting forward on the opening of the theatre, I'm not sure that I'm bending it as much.
Okay.
Because of the high profile opportunity and opening of this nature will happen. This will be the best theatre in the country. This will be quite something. It'll be a huge amount of news. The story about the funding of it, how the communities got together. It's going to send out a huge message about Hamilton, and I think that's really, really important for us.
Yeah. Look, I hear that, and this is absolutely, no, I'm totally supportive and excited about the theatre. I suppose I'm just struggling with. It makes me wonder whether we should be finding the money for that opening night from somewhere else if we were going to strictly adhere to the criteria of this policy. But you're comfortable with this?
Yes, I am, but I also accept exactly what you're saying.
Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Chair.
Kia ora, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Hutt.
Thank you. Just continuing on this Boone theme, I was a little bit confused and I was wondering if you could shed some light for me, Sean. In the Waikato Times article yesterday, they talked about Boone After Dark and the sculpture trail, but then their application seems to be for the 4-day murals, kind of the BAU. I'm just a little bit confused about the two slightly at odd statements. Do you have any more information about what the extra 100,000 was going to provide?
I think it's as per the application in terms of staging the Boone event. In terms of the night tour and peripheral activities that they have around it, yes, they weren't overly explicit about that in their application, but I've taken that as a given, as a part of it.
Yeah.
Once again, those events will be great, but they will largely be community or Hamiltonians or people in the immediate vicinity, as opposed to bringing a large number of people in to stay the night from Auckland or wherever. So I still feel from the policy point of view, it's still a bit thin.
I noticed that in this financial year there was an underspend of about $80,000. I was just wondering if that is a usual trend for this, where we have a little bit left over?
Yes, usually, and sometimes we will say, like as we have this year, we will, when we put up a recommendation, if there is a slight underspend for whatever reason, we recommend that it might be redirected elsewhere, and I'm recommending it would be very helpful to have that money for our event leverage fund so that we can do some city activation for things like an All Blacks game or whatever. But the committee has from time to time actually put a resolution as to how they would like that to be redirected.
Yeah.
At the moment, the surplus for this current financial year will just be treated as a surplus.
So I think just to clarify, Sean, the 88,000 surplus in the current year, as you say, will be just goes to a surplus. Just
Yeah, it's
the
not.
$27,000, which is next year's surplus, you're recommending to be event activation.
Yep.
Cool.
Thank you, Councillor Hutt. Councillor McIndoe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Because of the interest I've already declared in the regional theatre, I don't want to comment on that aspect of this. But Sean, coming back to the questions that have been asked about Bourne Street, and I apologise if I'm just not seeing it there, but how much over the time that this fund has operated has Bourne Street received from this fund? I know you said they've been slightly out of the
Yes.
the context.
I'm not sure.
Would you have a rough idea?
I'm not sure though. It was. I'm trying to think. I think they had 3 years of funding.
3 years. Yeah.
And I think it was 50 or 80,000. I'm not sure. I need to get back to you.
Over 3 or in each year?
In each year.
In each
But
year.
I know I'd need to get back to you on that. I'm looking at my phone in case someone quickly sends me a message.
Right. I guess what I'm getting at is, to what extent is Bourne Street dependent on this source of funding for the viability of their program looking forward?
I suspect it's very important to them, and I have had a message from 21 to 23. It was $25,000 per year, so I was
25,000 per year. Okay. So clearly they just need to find that revenue from other sponsors and other sources.
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And what were they applying for in this year? If it was 25,000 in the previous years, was it similar? 40, was it? 100.
100,000.
Considerably more than they were allocated. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor McIndoe. Councillor Bidder.
Thank you, Chair. Sean, I have a slight concern about the burden on applying for the funds. If it takes a lot of time to get a small amount of money, that would be inefficient. I see most of the applicants are about 10 pages of tick box stuff, which is good. Hamilton Gardens has got about 80 pages in their application, mainly photos and stuff. is that appropriate? Can we indicate to them that they don't need to spend so much time?
Yeah.
We'd rather they use their money.
Yeah, sure.
Their event.
No, it's a good point. First up, the application process, we provide the applicants with a form,
Yeah.
which is a few pages.
Yes.
And it is largely text box, put a paragraph in, and so forth. And we do ask them to attach some details like financials, where other money's coming from. Some applicants do go to great lengths to sell the sizzle. Some don't, are more straightforward. But I'd also highlight that a lot of the information in the reports here is they are required to report back their previous year's activity against the fund.
Right.
And part of this paper is actually that report back, and that's where you get a lot of the stuff and the collateral, which will hopefully give you confidence to approve it again for the following year, obviously. So, yes, I get how onerous it is, but I'd like to think that our scoring system makes it very, very clear for people, and that whether it's worth applying or not, because I agree with you. There are a number of instances where if there's a vague application of a fund, you do get a bit of an overreach.
Yes. Right. Thank you.
And Councillor Pike.
Thank you, Chair Maria. My question was just around noting the Ham Lug Inc. application, the Brick Show, who have done a fantastic job of their application. Would that kind of group be also encouraged to apply for community grants, that kind of thing? Because just looking at their situation, perhaps
I actually am sure they're aware of the community grants. I'm not sure if they have applied. But I haven't looked into that side of it. But I can't answer that question. But we do discourage where we can double dipping, because historically, quite around the time when I first arrived at council, there were applicants getting a little bit from here, a little bit from here, all over the show. So we have worked hard to corral that.
Okay, so just because I wonder if that would have been a better fit, long term, because they've got 4 events across this. But okay, thank you.
Kapai. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, apologies, Chair. I'm just circling around for one more sneaky question. No, it's not sneaky. It's actually the emphasis on bed nights. I really get that. Can you and you mentioned the event leverage fund. What is that, and how much is in there at the moment?
The event leverage fund is a separate fund that comes through under the LTP.
Yeah.
And it is primarily used. Sometimes if we're preparing a pitch document, if we need to spend a little bit of money to pitch for the All Blacks, for example, or in that. But primarily it goes towards city hosting. So if we have France coming to play the All Blacks in July, so we'll be putting up some banners around the city to celebrate that they're here and the event's taking place. We'll be organising some school visits, and I'm not sure if we're organising. We haven't had an answer yet. I don't think. Sometimes you see us have an event in Garden Place to welcome, big teams of scale and things like that, and that's what that fund is used for. That is $95,000, and it was reduced quite dramatically at the last LTP. And for us to be able to fulfil city hosting obligations that people like NZ Rugby or cricket or some of the other big sort of world-type events or international events require of a city when they are considering coming to us, I'm operating on vapour right now, which is why I sort of suggested that 27 be put into that fund, bearing in mind we've got homegrown next year. We haven't come to council for any money on that, but I do have to do some city activation associated with that to support it.
Okay, thanks for reminding me. Thanks, Chair.
I'm just going to Councillor Thompson online.
Thanks, Chair. Hi, Sean. Do you know, in terms of Boone, so they have 50,000 a year secured for these 3 years, but do you know what the impact will be if they don't receive further funding? Does that impact on the viability of further mural events?
I cannot answer for Boone Street, but I suspect they would be stressed as a result.
Yeah.
But I can't answer for them.
Cool, thank you.
Any further questions? Oh, Councillor Naidura?
Just following up on Sarah, Councillor Sarah, that's, I don't know if you would know the answer, Sean, but that is the first time that Hamilton Arts Trust is receiving that multi-year funding through the community services grant, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. I can't be sure. I don't have that background. Just bearing in mind, they did not get any funding in 2024 from this fund at all. So they did still survive. So
did they? Memory is a bit fuzzy, but they it was a separate resolution that came through to annual plan or LTP to fund them, wasn't it?
Certainly not through my area or my funding zone, so I can't answer that, but I think it would have been through a community fund of some sort.
Because I think it would be helpful for, for transparency's sake to know exactly which bucket of funding is supporting them yearly.
Yeah, so my understanding is they've got a 3-year funding of $50,000 from community.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Councillor Hart?
We do have the answer via my question last night to
Would it be
governance.
helpful?
Yeah.
It may be able to be helpful here. So you're absolutely right. Through the 2023 report to the Economic Development Committee, their application was declined, but it was referred to the annual plan process. And as a part of that, they were approved an amount of $50,000 to be funded from the 2023-24 Creative Partnership Fund. And then it was moved to the long-term plan where the creative partnership agreements were created, and that's where that $50,000 has come from that they have for 3 years. And now the 50,000 from the community grant is the same 50,000. So the application that's been declined was for extra funding for separate.
Yes, new.
So the operational costs are still being met. Contributions from council.
There has been, there is a contribution to them from council through that fund.
That's clear. Thank you.
Okay, Deputy Mayor O'Leary?
No, sorry, I was just going to raise
that point. Okay, back to Councillor Hart.
Yeah, that was partly my initial question of, the story and the thing talked about different things, but then we have already funded them for this other stuff. But I was just, I'm not sure, this may not be a Sean question. If we were to move Boone, a question around Boone to annual plan, and if that was successful, so being very hypothetical, what would be the time frame for that? Just thinking about them and their, time frames for putting on the festival.
Well, I think if you refer the item to the annual plan meeting on the 29th of May, the opportunity for council is to make a decision as to over which period you choose to fund, and if you choose to fund some additional money in the annual plan for next financial year, then that would be applicable for that financial year, which I guess is what this grant is requesting. So it's entirely within your prerogative. I do note that this will be a late item for the annual plan. The report's gone out, but that meeting is the appropriate place to consider a funding request where they aren't contemplated in budgets.
I just get nervous sometimes about when we defer stuff, what that deferral time frame, looks like. But that's, not too far away.
I'm not sure we're saying it's a deferral. I think we're saying this is a matter which is best considered in the budget setting process.
If I could just add, the lady behind the machine here has reminded me that on page 87 of the agenda, it does clarify the $50,000 per annum, which goes through until the financial year 2027.
Yep.
So 25, 26 and 27, that is in place. So.
Okay.
Mayor O'Leary?
Thank Madam Chair. So just to be helpful to the committee, I've asked governance to add to the motion that we use the unallocated 27,000, but then consider that and I guess funding the full 50,000 to the annual plan. So that it's at the moment it's an E from Amy's email, but it needs to be just rejigged a little bit to what I just said. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's still kicking it to the annual plan, which is next week anyway.
Kapai, will let Amy
Which is
just
kind
check
of,
that?
yeah, which is the similar situation we ended up in last year. We're in again.
Okay.
The recommendation that I put in is for the fund in the financial year to be put in into the leverage fund, and that's fine. If you're saying you're putting it into the annual plan, I just want to be clear, does that mean you're removing or reducing the event sponsorship fund by $27,000 ongoing, or just for that one?
Just for this year, because then new council's right into an LTP,
Okay.
right? And yet again, they can have a go at sorting this stuff out.
So it's a reallocation.
So just, I mean, obviously, we're getting into an annual plan discussion, but so 2 weeks' time, we're talking about the annual plan for year 2 of the LTP. There is another annual plan for year 3, so you'd have to,
I'm talking about this one coming up.
yeah, which is for year
Yeah.
2,
Yeah. So,
and then there's another annual plan a year after that as well. So the LTP is 2 years away.
yeah.
If I'm, sorry, Chair, if I may, the other option is just to simply change the recommendation that I have here, and rather for it to be redirected to the Event Leverage Fund, is actually to be redirected straight to the Bourne Street application. Yeah, and make that decision at this meeting.
But we're still 24,000 short of what they've requested,
sure.
right?
Yeah, sure.
That's why I thought if we put it up to the annual plan next week as a late item, yes, we could secure the 27,000 now, we'd be talking about 24,000, then, yeah.
Okay,
So if I could just talk to what's on the screen, I've taken out E and I've said request that the council consider the movement of the allocated financial year 26 event sponsorship fund at the end of the allocation process of 27,000 to the budget. So I've allowed it to be whatever the conversation will rounded next week, and the application from Boom Street Art Festival at the 29th of May council meeting as part of the annual plan deliberation. So it's just moving it completely to there. And just for clarity for those that are, for how we'll manage with the conflicts that are here, I'll just scroll up for a second. I've taken out the Waikato Regional Theatre event from motion 1, and I have moved it to be motion 2, because that will allow Councillor McIndoe and Councillor Maria to actually move away from the table and not vote on those items.
is everyone happy with that?
Does that make sense?
Kapai.
Okay.
Kapai. Deputy Mayor, Councillor
Thank you,
Taylor.
Chair. Look, I've just got a question. Sorry, I've got a question for the Deputy Mayor, and we're allowed to ask Sean about that. Yeah, so if you're suggesting that it goes to the annual plan and the money that would have gone to the event activation budget, the 27K, instead if we agree at annual plan time, instead gets diverted to Boone. Okay.
But it would allow us to possibly top that up to what they're actually asking for, because they're not asking for 27, they're asking for 100.
Okay.
So it just allows us to have
They're asking for an extra 50.
My question is, what does that
50.
do to our event activation fund, which you said you're you're on vapor, trying to get through everything?
Yeah, look, I'm sorry I shouldn't use the word vapour, but that is my life in terms of what we do. But look, I hear what you're saying about rounding up to 100,000, but don't forget they had 3 years of 50,000. They put a new application in for an additional 100,000. So I understand trying to get up to 100,000, but if, you know, it's still short of what their ask was, and I have to say the ask is huge compared to previous years. So I just want to make sure that context is understood, and I'm not trying to dissuade you, but
Chair, my bad here. Happy to always say when I'm wrong. I thought that they were asking for an extra 50, but no, they're asking for an extra 100, aren't they? I wonder if we could adjourn for a few minutes just to chat to everyone and see.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
That enough?
Thank you, Chair.
20 past 10? Let's keep this flow moving. Tato, it's good that we can do these things to provide clarification and get us on the same page as much as we can. All right, let's go back to our motion on the board, and they're split into two, as Amy has already explained.
So again, just for complete clarity and those online that might have missed the conversation, we're back to what the staff recommendation is, and that has been moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Louise, and we have split it into two, so we'll be voting first on the suite without the theatre and then individually on the theatre.
For the first motion, I think we should go to the board just for clarity, please. Yeah, let's have some debate. Let's spice that up. You may absolutely go first as Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
I will try and spice it up. And thank you for allowing us the time. It's always Madam Chair. It's always great when we get to work collegially like that. Appreciate it. Look, this is, you know, it's so frustrating, isn't it? Because we all want to support these creative things for our city, and of that we're all of exactly the same mind. So anyone watching online and whatever media stories come out of this, do not misinterpret any decision for a lack of robust and passionate support. However, we are in a funding constrained environment ourselves, and the issue here, I think, and I raised it when I presented to Councillor Naidu-Rolfe's committee with my very lengthy, I'm sorry, and very wordy 4-page report on from Creative Ambassador updates. You know, one of the issues that we've had that we haven't been able to really address is separating creative funding and giving it its own funding stream. And as Councillor Bitter raised, trying to make it easy for them, reducing the red tape, reducing the plethora of tick boxes and check boxes. And I know we need some of that because we are dealing with other people's money, but we want to be easy to do business with. But yeah, so look, speaking on the other things, thank you to the General Manager. I know it's very difficult to manage all of the events that come to our city on a tight budget, but the events in the list are most of them, all of them probably, I attend, and I know others do as well, and they do create vibrancy and bring overnight visitors to our fantastic city, so thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And if it's okay, Councillor Taylor, as the seconder, I'm going to go to Councillor Hutt.
We have talked a lot today about Boone, and I want to take a microsecond to acknowledge all the other applicants and all the successful applicants as well, because I think we're so in agreement we didn't even talk about it, which shows how high the agreement was, that they fit the fund, they're valuable additions to our city, and, you know, we're really happy to see them go ahead. So I just want to acknowledge them. It's really difficult, the situation we're in with Boone, because it's a little bit of a square peg, round hole situation. And I also want to acknowledge the really awkward situation it puts our General Manager in with the policy, and, you know, do you bend it a little bit because we value them, but really it's on us to find a different solution. I do want, you know, I am sure that our friends at Boone will be watching this, and I really want to reiterate Deputy Mayor O'Leary's comments that, you know, they're valued, they are supported, we need to find a place for them in our budgets, but we also need to be really clear about what is being funded and what we can expect to see, because we've had some questions that weren't really were able to be answered with assurance today. So my plea is to please keep talking with us. Please keep working with us to find some solutions, because I know that, you know, there is so much agreement for what Boone has done for our city, and that we want them to keep doing it. So let's keep having kōrero. Please reach out.
Councillor Hutt. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, look, I support the motion. I wouldn't have supported E. I think my questioning of Sean was really about the theatre and how that kind of fits into our criteria, and it's on the edge, but so that's really what I was getting at, rather than thinking that Boone actually needs any more, because they are getting, my understanding, 150k over 3 years from another fund. So, but the theatres, this is a one-off. This is huge, the theatre, and we need to milk every last bit of publicity and energy out of that. And so I support the General Manager nuancing that. I really think bed nights and filling up restaurants and bars and cafes is for me, it's a big focus. And I wonder about the event activation fund. I think we might have reduced that to a real bare minimum. And, you know, we get something like homegrown and everyone's celebrating it, but these things are coming to us without us putting any money in or anything to attract them. And I'm not saying we do that, but I'm just saying, to me, that's more of an emphasis, is trying to get some more of those sorts of things to the city. So I guess I'm signalling that I want to have relook at that at some point, and whether we take money from somewhere else and boost up the event activation fund. But I'm happy with this here today. I think it's always a tough one, but I think we've got the balance okay.
Councillor Taylor. Councillor McIndoe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo the sentiments of colleagues who have already spoken on this issue. I think that as far as the specific application under this category is concerned, we have criteria underpinning our policies for very good reasons, and we ignore those at our peril sometimes because we open up all sorts of precedents that then become difficult to keep under control. So I think we are clearly heading in the right direction. But I do want to make the point, and as a former Chief Executive of Arts Waikato, I'm aware of the fact that community arts groups in particular really struggle for funding right across the country, including here in Hamilton. There is absolutely no question that the Boon Festival is a tremendous event for our city. It's adding so much colour and vibrancy and opportunities for the expression of creative talent that we want to find a way of doing that. So I am very pleased to hear that there is what I think is emerging a consensus to find some way that they will be able to be considered under a more appropriate heading down the track, and I look forward to seeing that happen.
Kia ora. No more debaters? Excellent. Let's take this vote to the on board. Oh, sorry, right apply.
Just to emphasise a point that Councillor Taylor touched on, which is a really good one. You know, while we are always around the city dressing and city activation, while we are always really proud to have these events come to our city, and we're all, you know, some of us as elected members get invited to them and open them and all sorts of things, yet we can only afford one flag on one side of the flagpole on every second flagpole. We need to do better. It's not really city dressing. We can and should do better. So I just wanted to emphasise Councillor Taylor's point on that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Kia ora, Deputy Mayor. Okay, let's take the vote to the board. I see we've already got a yes from Councillor Anna. Kia ora, Councillor Anna. Go the Blues, moko. All right. And a yes online.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Awesome. Okay, for the next one, I'm going to get Deputy Mayor Angela to facilitate.
Really quick, won't it? Thank you. So we've got the Waikato Regional Council, Regional Council, I spoke there this week, the Waikato Regional Theatre motion up on the board. So we'll just wait for that. We need the motion up first. Thank you. I'm happy to move that. Thank you, Councillor Hutt. Yeah, any questions on that? We're all quite clear. We still have a quorum, don't we? Yep. All right. I won't debate on this. I think everything's been said. So, yep. All right. Let's go to the vote on the board, please, for Zoomlanders. Not to be confused with Zoolander. Oh,
The motion is carried unanimously.
To item 10, strategic and general update. I'd like to invite Mike and Tiki to the mic. We're going to go take this in two parts. Tiki's going to share your kōrero and some questions, and then we'll go to Mike.
Morena Chair, Morena Councillors. Before I get started, I just want to acknowledge the 30-year anniversary of the Raupatu settlement, and as part of that, just briefly touch on the importance of Waikato Tainui to Kirikiriroa, but also the wider region. There's an estimate that for every dollar spent on construction, there's a $3 benefit to the local economy. If you look at Ruakura, just in terms of the consents that were lodged in the last couple of years, $170 million value, $500 million of benefit to our economy. We've got Brookfield coming in, potentially spending $1 billion on construction in Hamilton in the next sort of 7 to 8 years. That's $3 billion for our economy. If you look at the other projects that Waikato Tainui have done, that figure just keeps getting bigger and bigger. So they're a really, really important part of Hamilton's economy. We have terrible data on it, but it is, you can see it in our city and you can see the growth that they're driving. And if you consider where that came from, $166 or $170 million settlement 30 years ago, and you look at all of the change that they have driven from that point, as well as all the profits from these things are being pumped back into the community. They're going into grants, they're supporting education, they're supporting social initiatives as well. So really, really important part of our economy. But also to acknowledge they're not the only part of our economy. So we also have other Māori businesses in Hamilton who are also generating economic growth and economic benefits for our city. So that's, I'll leave that part there on the Māori economy. I just want to say we've just had the new data in from Infometrics on the March quarter. No real surprises, wasn't great. GDP is down, employment is now negative, but surprisingly businesses are still growing. We're still having more businesses in the city. We saw an increase in guest nights and we saw an increase in tourism expenditure as well. So there are some good things or green shoots, but generally it is unsurprising in terms of the impact that we're seeing on our economy. So I'll leave it there if there's any questions.
No questions for Tiki?
Quick one, thank you, Tikipedia. Just you mentioned that we don't have great data on the benefits of our Māori economy and business and the impacts. Have we started gathering that data for future insights, or what steps can we do to get better insights?
Unfortunately, we have very little control over that because a lot of our data, or a lot of the data that we use generally goes to places like IRD, or it's collected by a government organisation, and they are only allowed to collect information that is directly related to their purpose. So gathering ethnic data or ethnicity data is just not an option for them. Maybe if some of the like Waikato Tainui and some of the other tribes pushed to get that information collected, there might be a way around it. But as a council, we have no ability to change the information collected. But hopefully, as we move forward, the importance of it starts to be acknowledged, and they look for ways to do it on a regular basis.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pike. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Tiki. Mike, over to you.
Morning. I just quickly want to introduce a member of our team who was here at our last meeting, but Martin joined us in January, and I'll speak to some of the work that he's been able to contribute to, but just want to acknowledge the work that he's jumped right into and really had an impact. not just on our dress code as well. But yeah, real quickly, I want to step back and just reaffirm what this program was built on, and it's been a journey for me over the last 5 years. Economic development didn't really exist when I got here, so I'm really proud of the work we've been able to do with the support of the GM and consecutive chairs around this. Really, it's built on two pillars: business relationships and business opportunities. And we're not very creative. Martin is the business opportunities advisor. RF is the business relationships advisor. So it's very clear on the can what we do. You often have heard of the work in the business relationships space that RF leads, and you'll hear more about that at our next meeting. This meeting, I want to focus a few comments on the opportunities space. So a confluence of Martin getting here in January, the need to do a lot of things has really, in the last week, been put on show with the material that we're able to provide and kind of, I would say, exceed our own expectations of what we could enable elected members to go out into the world with support from the comms team and others. So that's a real big box tick for us. I think that's just step one of what we want to do in that space of telling our story and manifesting it in physical storytelling. The second bit on that was our Winning from the Waikato event that was on Monday under the Tech and the Tron banner that we manage. Won't go into the details, probably be included in our next report, but it was, again, exceeded all expectations. The feedback has been overwhelming. Really, it was our attempt to bring together the tech community, stand up, make a statement as part of Tech Week, which is a national event focusing on the tech sector across the country. Third bit is just finalized today, the final design agreed to with shareholding councils of the airport on just a test, the first economic development project at the airport to start talking about economic development and opportunities, not in any one particular way that meets necessarily all one council's need, but how we talk as a collective of the shareholding councils and start to ensure that people coming and going through the airport, now particularly those coming and going to Australia, have some creative way to start thinking about us as more than maybe they have in the past with a business sense. So really, really proud of that, and Martin's been leading and directing that. And then lastly, on the regional economic development space, you know, we were following the event on Monday. We were straight at it up in Thames for half a day with our regional partners, focusing and working hard to speak as a unified voice as economic developers from around the region. Part of that is getting out and seeing what other people are doing and connecting it back to what we do. So the time in Thames was really interesting around the aquaculture and understanding. We have companies right here in Hamilton who, although we're not coastal, have a direct tie into the aquaculture segment. So how can we support that? The next meeting that we're having is down, hosted by Waitomo District Council, and we're going to go work and learn a little bit at the Ngāti Maniapoto Marae Pac Trust to understand what they're doing in the space of workforce development with an emphasis on iwi, as well as the work they do with Te Nehe Nui. So again, learnings for us to see how we can support that, bring it back to what we do locally and work as a wider region. And then just touching on Tiki's opening bit about the Maori economy. For us in our space, and particularly in tech, just for example, with the tech thing we did on Monday, two companies or two awards finalists, Deep Dive Division, which is a Maori-owned business here in Hamilton, is a finalist for Maori Company of the Year at the High Tech Awards on Friday. And then Lee Timutimu, who's just been, he is the guy in the space of tech for Maori. He's up for an award of Inspiring Individual. So, you know, we fully support them and really work with them and champion the wider tech community. And then one of the speakers on Monday, Mike Jenkins, is a board member of Tuatia, which is doing a lot of work in the broadband spectrum, again, within Maori telco. So that's it. Quite a lot, but I think, yeah, I've just been really proud of the way the last few months have sort of come together, and you can see that business relationships, business opportunities, the two pillars that the program's built on. And I'll leave it there.
I'm going to move the report. Do we have a seconder before we do questions? Thank you, Councillor Hart. Any questions? Kapai, we're going to go to debate. Oh, Councillor Hart, sorry, Councillor Hart.
Hi, Mike.
Right.
What do I got to do to get an invite to the tech events?
Everybody is always invited. Yeah, actually, one of the things we work really hard on under the Tech and the Tron, with the money that that entity gets from businesses, the whole event was open to everyone. So we work really hard to promote it and make sure that everybody is aware of, we don't ticket it. I think there was a registration, but there was no cost to it. And so, yeah, we co-hosted with the university. They were great partners. I think what we want to do is keep amplifying that, and then, if appropriate, work with governance just to make sure that everybody knows. I mean, we think we do a good job letting everyone know, but could always do better.
Well, I heard multiple people telling me how good it was, so I had massive FOMO. And I know that the LIC tech events, which are ticketed, I never read my emails fast enough to get a ticket to that, so I was like, if I can get into this one.
Yeah,
That would
I
be
think
great.
we're chatting, so much came from Monday, we'll probably have to follow it up at next meeting, but we're chatting on how we elevate all of that and build awareness, because there's no shortage of events to go to, and I think sometimes gets lost in the wash, but I think there are a few that really stand out, just to pick favorites, that maybe we can come up with a way that, at least in our opinion, if you're able to be engaged from a council perspective, which are the ones that we would really advocate to making sure are on your radar.
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, go to debate. Just quickly, as the mover, I just want to acknowledge Tiki for the stats and your acknowledgement of the 30 years of the settlement of Waikato Tainui. I got chills when you started to talk about it. And just leading on from Councillor Pike's question about gathering data, there is a iwi-driven outfit called Te Whata, TEWHATA, where iwi organisations are encouraged to input their data. So we could probably do better in terms of linking in with that and through our joint management agreement with Waikato Tainui, just to stay on top of those stats that are relevant to us. I want to also mihi to Martin, just at the top. Thank you, Martin, for the print collateral that you put together for us to take to Chengdu last month. It was well received, and the turnaround of that was amazing. And further to our hosting of the educational focused delegation from Chengdu that was here on Monday, and being able to do that alongside Deputy Mayor Angela, and to take the delegation to Ngātai Ātea Wharekura, which is a total immersion reo Māori language school. And to my understanding, that's the first opportunity as a council that we've been able to give our international visitors authentic cultural welcome and experience, and I hope that that continues. The only thing that makes us different to anybody else in this entire world is our cultural distinctiveness. We can't compare on any other scale, but if we highlight that, that's what will put us in the lead. Also, I want to mihi to Mike and Arif and the team for the winning from Waikato event. And just a quick action, let's put an email out to all staff, all councillors for the next one, and I'm going to leave it there because my time is out. Councillor Hart, would you like to? Okay, do we need to go to the board for this vote? Okay, all those in favour of this report, the strategic unit update, say aye. Hands up.
The motion is carried unanimously.
Excellent. Moving on to Mr. Nicholas Wells and the strategic property update 527 in your diligent, item 11.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think the report's pretty clear, so I'm very happy just to take it as read and answer any questions that you might have.
Nicholas, for councillors who didn't get to see your brilliant performances in Yes, Prime Minister at the Gaslight Theatre in Cambridge, could you do your Winston Churchill impression?
I could do my Winston Churchill impression. I'm just trying to remember the line, but it's along the face. it will stand alongside the Magna Carta and the American Declaration of Independence.
Thank you.
Actually, you sounded like Martin Gallagher.
Thank you for that question, councillor, but I would never have seen that. We must acknowledge the person in their entirety, so thank you very much. Any other questions? Do we have a mover? Would anyone like to move this report? Councillor Pike, seconder? Councillor Taylor? All those in favour?
Carried unanimously.
Carried unanimously. Okay, excellent. Before 11 o'clock, just in time for morning tea. We're going to the resolution to exclude the public. I'll move that. Taylor to second. All those in favour? Let's go for a cup of tea, and how long we can have it for? 15 minutes. So just after 11.
Just need to make sure those online come back on.